This story is a work of fiction, inspired by real events. Names, dates, locations, and identifying details have been changed or dramatized to protect privacy and enhance the narrative. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental or used fictitiously. This content is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not aim to glorify crime, promote violence, or pass judgment on real individuals. Viewer discretion is advised. Some scenes may contain mature, disturbing, or triggering content. What you are about to watch could have happened anywhere, to anyone. It's inspired by real events. Whispers of truth buried beneath layers of fiction. We've changed the names, the dates, the locations, but the emotions, the betrayal, the fear, those are real. This story is not meant to accuse, only to reveal, to make you question, who do you really trust? If stories like this keep you thinking, long after they end, hit subscribe, smash like, and drop your theory in the comments. Now watch closely, before the truth disappears again.
Saturday, June 14, 2019. The day that should have been filled with laughter and vows began like a dream. Morning sunlight spilled over Atlanta, washing the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Chapel in shades of red and gold. The air inside was sweet with the scent of roses, each bloom carefully placed along the pews. In a quiet dressing room, Clara Whitfield, just 26, stood in silk and lace. She was a school teacher, the kind who gave her heart to her students as easily as she did to the people she loved. Friends said she trusted too much, loved too deeply. Today, with her veil pinned neatly in her chestnut hair, she believed in a promise that seemed certain. She believed he would come. By 11:45 a.m., the chapel was full. The organist waited, hands hovering over the keys. Guests leaned into whispers, wondering where the groom was. Clara laughed nervously, brushing away her bridesmaids' worried glances. "Traffic," she whispered. Nothing more. At 12:30 p.m., the whispers turned into murmurs. Calls were made, but everyone ended the same. Voicemail. Clara's father paced the hallway with his phone pressed to his ear, his jaw locked tight. Her mother clutched rosary beads so hard the wood cut into her palm. Clara tried to smile, but the smile never reached her eyes. By 3 p.m., the air inside the chapel felt heavier. Guests stepped outside to search nearby streets, scanning for headlights that never came. Inside, Clara's bouquet shook in her hands until stems snapped beneath her grip. Her lips trembled as she whispered again and again, "He'll come, he'll come." When the clock struck 5 p.m., the weight of waiting crushed her. Clara collapsed at the altar. Gasps echoed through the chapel as her bouquet scattered across the marble floor, petals torn and bruised. Guests rushed forward. Her skin had gone pale, her chest heaving in shallow breaths. The trust she had built her life on, the trust she had given freely, broke in an instant, and her body followed. Her closest bridesmaid stumbled back, fumbling for her phone. She pressed trembling fingers to the screen and dialed 119. Her voice spilled out in fragments, jagged and raw. "Please, hurry. He never came. We waited all day. She trusted him. Now she's on the ground. Oh God, please." Her voice cracked into sobs, the chapel falling into stunned silence. Somewhere among the guests, a whisper floated through the air. Someone swore they saw him yesterday. But with who? No one could answer. The words lingered like smoke, shapeless, unsettling, impossible to ignore. As the paramedics carried Clara away, the chapel remained dressed for a wedding that never came. The altar stood untouched. The candles flickered faintly, and the groom, the man meant to stand there, was gone. What happened to the man who was supposed to walk down that aisle? And why did he never return? Michael Carter was 28 years old. He wasn't just Clara's fiancé. He was her anchor, her steady place in a world that often felt unkind. Born on April 2, 1991, in Savannah, Georgia, Michael grew up with a mother who worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table and a younger brother who looked at him as both protector and guide. By the time he finished high school, he had already carried more responsibility than most men twice his age. In college, he studied architecture, drawn to the idea of designing spaces where people could belong. It was in those classrooms, while sketching lines across endless sheets of paper, that friends began to call him a dreamer. But Michael wasn't just a dreamer. He was disciplined, the kind who woke up before dawn to work, who stayed up past midnight to finish. Every promise he made, he intended to keep. Clara met him in 2016 at a volunteer event hosted by her father's church. She was handing out school supplies to children when she noticed Michael on the other side of the gym, kneeling down to tie a boy's shoe. Their eyes met only briefly, but something inside her shifted. She later told a friend that it wasn't fireworks she felt. It was calm, as if she had stumbled upon something she didn't know she had been missing. They began dating soon after. At first quietly, Michael was reserved, cautious about how Clara's father, Pastor Whitfield, might see him. The pastor had always been protective of his only daughter, a man whose sermons thundered about sin, but whose love for his child was softer than any words he spoke. Michael knew winning his trust would not be simple, but with time, patience, and an unwavering respect for Clara, Michael did win it. By Christmas of 2017, the pastor welcomed him into the family's home. It was then, over dinner and prayer, that Clara realized Michael was not just a passing love. He was home. On December 14th, 2018, Michael proposed. It was a Friday night. He took Clara back to the gymnasium where they had first met. He strung lights across the rafters and placed candles in mason jars along the floor. When she walked in, he dropped to one knee. Clara said yes before he could finish the question. That night, she told her friends she felt as though she had been chosen twice, once by Michael and once by God. In the months that followed, they planned their wedding down to the smallest detail. They chose June 14th, 2019, because it marked exactly 3 years from the day they first locked eyes. Clara often said it felt symbolic, as though the date itself had been written for them. But hidden beneath the joy of their preparations was a shadow no one could see. Someone close, someone trusted, carried secrets heavy enough to shatter everything. And as the wedding drew nearer, Michael began to drift into long silences. He canceled 1 or 2 dinners without reason. He brushed away Clara's questions with a smile. She trusted him. Of course she did. But trust has a way of blinding even the clearest eyes. The day before the wedding, June 13th, 2019, Michael left his apartment and never returned. No one could have imagined who he was with or what it would cost him. Friday, June 13th, 2019. The sun was sinking over Atlanta, the sky streaked with pink and fading gold. For most people, it was just another summer evening. But for Clara Whitfield, it was the last night before she became a wife. She spent those hours with her bridesmaids, folding ribbons, adjusting flowers, and laughing about how tomorrow would change everything. She spoke of Michael with a softness in her voice, the kind of love that bends but never breaks. But while Clara was surrounded by friends and family, Michael Carter's steps took him elsewhere. At 6:45 p.m., he was spotted leaving his apartment complex in Midtown. Neighbors remembered the way he walked that evening, hurried, head down, hands shoved deep in his pockets. He told one person he had errands to run before the big day. He told another he was going to meet a friend. No one questioned it. After all, tomorrow was his wedding day. What happened next would remain a fracture in the story, a space filled with questions too heavy to answer. Witnesses placed him at a downtown cafe around 7:15 p.m., seated across from a man few recognized. They spoke quietly, leaning in, their expressions unreadable. At one point, the stranger placed a hand on Michael's shoulder, and Michael's face shifted. Some said to relief, others swore it was fear. By 8:30 p.m., they left together. Michael didn't go home that night. His car sat untouched in the parking lot, keys still in his pocket when he was last seen. Phone records show his cell stopped transmitting at 9:02 p.m., the signal cutting off near an industrial stretch of road just outside the city. Clara, meanwhile, lay awake in her childhood bedroom, whispering prayers into the dark. She thought of vows, of futures, of the life she would wake up to in the morning. She never knew that, in those very hours, the man she trusted with her heart was already slipping into silence. By dawn, June 14th arrived without him. And in that silence, one question grew louder than all the wedding bells that never rang. Who was the man he was with? And what truth did Michael carry to his final night? Saturday, June 14th, 2019. The day that should have been filled with music and vows dawned with a brightness that seemed almost cruel. The church stood ready, decorated in lilies and soft white cloth, sunlight spilling through stained glass windows that painted the floor in colors of promise. Guests began to arrive by mid-morning, filling pews with hushed anticipation. Clara Whitfield, dressed in lace, waited in the small bridal room at the back of the sanctuary. Her hands trembled, not from doubt, but from the weight of a dream about to come true. Her bridesmaids circled her, whispering encouragement, adjusting her veil, smoothing fabric that would never brush against the aisle. Every second her heart beat with the rhythm of expectation. She believed Michael would appear. How could he not? But the minutes turned into hours. Noon arrived and still there was no groom. Guests shuffled uneasily in their seats. Some whispered, some checked their watches, others prayed under their breath. Clara's father, Pastor Whitfield, stood at the altar, with his Bible in hand, glancing toward the doors with a face torn between faith and fear. By 1 o'clock, silence filled the sanctuary. The bridesmaids stepped outside to call Michael, but his phone rang only to voicemail. His car had not moved. His apartment was dark. No one knew where he was. At 2:17 p.m., the unthinkable happened. Clara fainted, collapsing under the weight of a truth she refused to believe. The bridesmaids screamed her name, rushing to her side. In the confusion, one of them, her closest friend, dialed 911 with shaking hands. Her voice cracked as she told the dispatcher that the bride's fiancé never showed, that they had waited all day, that Clara could not bear the shock. The ambulance came, not for a groom, but for a bride who had lost both her love and her strength in one cruel stroke. Guests filed out in silence, their shoes clicking against the church floor like echoes of a funeral march. The wedding day had become a wound, and no vow, no prayer could stitch it closed. And somewhere beyond the flowers that wilted on the altar, beyond the pews that sat in stunned stillness, lingered a question sharp enough to cut through hope itself. What happened to Michael Carter the night before? He was to become a husband. The hours after the failed wedding bled into days of uncertainty. On June 15th, 2019, the Atlanta Police Department officially opened a missing persons case for Michael Carter. At first, many clung to the hope that he had simply run away, perhaps overwhelmed by the gravity of marriage. But those who knew him best rejected the idea outright. Michael was steady, deliberate, a man who planned each step of his life with care. Disappearing on the eve of his wedding was not in his nature. Detectives began their work where all trails begin, Michael's apartment. Inside, nothing was disturbed. His suit for the wedding still hung neatly pressed, shoes polished at the base of his closet. His overnight bag for the honeymoon sat packed by the door, untouched. There was no note, no sign of struggle, only the silence of a life paused mid-step. Attention quickly turned to the last place Michael had been seen. Witnesses confirmed he was at a cafe downtown on the evening of June 13th, sitting with an unidentified man. Surveillance footage was reviewed. Grainy images captured the two men leaving together at 8:34 p.m. Michael looked tense, his shoulders hunched, his face drawn tight. The stranger's features were harder to read, calm, deliberate, almost guiding him toward the exit. Investigators traced Michael's phone records, revealing the device had gone dark near an industrial district at 9:02 p.m. The area was known for its warehouses and quiet streets, a place where footsteps echoed, but few eyes ever lingered. Officers searched, but nothing was found. No car, no wallet, no sign of Michael himself. Back at the church, Clara remained in shock. Her father, Pastor Whitfield, pleaded with police to find answers. Each press conference carried the weight of faith and fear, his words trembling as he asked the community to pray for his daughter's fiancé and for the truth to come to light. Whispers began to spread. Had Michael chosen to leave? Had someone taken him? And most haunting of all, who was the man seen with him on that final night? As investigators pieced together fragments of evidence, one truth became undeniable. Michael Carter did not vanish on his own. His disappearance carried the signature of a shadow that reached deeper than anyone could yet see. Weeks turned into months, and what began as whispers of speculation hardened into a chilling truth. The breakthrough came on September 3rd, 2019, when investigators received a tip that would unravel the silence surrounding Michael Carter's disappearance. A worker at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Atlanta recalled seeing a car that matched Michael's, parked there on the night of June 13th. Hidden in plain sight, the place had become the stage for his final hours. Detectives returned to the warehouse district, combing through shadows that had concealed more than they first realized. This time behind a stack of rusted barrels, they uncovered what they had missed before. Traces of fabric torn from a suit jacket, a bloodstain faint but undeniable, and nearby, a silver cufflink engraved with the initials MC, Michael Carter's, meant for the suit he never wore down the aisle. Forensic testing confirmed the blood was his. The case shifted from missing person to homicide. The trail led back to the unidentified man captured on the surveillance cameras. Investigators pored over footage, facial recognition software, narrowing possibilities until a name surfaced. Daniel Rivers, a man with a past hidden beneath layers of secrecy. He was not a stranger to Michael. He had once been more. Interviews and records revealed a secret relationship that stretched back years, one Michael had kept from nearly everyone, including Clara. Daniel had been his confidant, his shadow companion, the part of his life he could not reconcile with the future he promised to build with Clara. But as the wedding approached, Michael had pulled away, determined to sever ties. For Daniel, it was not just rejection, it was betrayal. On the night before the wedding, Daniel demanded one final meeting. The cafe was public, but the walk to the warehouse was not. There, beneath the flicker of broken lights, words turned to threats, and threats turned to violence. Daniel confessed under interrogation that he had struck Michael in a fit of rage. When Michael collapsed, he panicked, leaving his body hidden where only silence would bear witness. The revelation shattered Clara's world. The man she trusted, the man she believed had simply vanished, had been taken by someone he once trusted himself. Pastor Whitfield stood before his congregation the following Sunday, voice heavy with grief, yet resolute with faith, urging forgiveness even as anger tore through the community. The case that began with a bride fainting at the altar now stood exposed as a story of love turned obsession, secrecy turned violence, and trust turned to ash. But even as the truth came to light, one question lingered like smoke that refused to clear. How many lives are quietly destroyed not by strangers in the dark, but by those once welcomed closest to the heart? The story of Michael Carter is not only the tragedy of a life cut short, but also a mirror held up to us all. It reveals the danger that lies in silence, the shadows cast by secrets, and the devastation that comes when love is twisted into possession. A wedding meant to celebrate unity ended in grief, and a community left shaken has had to face the reality that betrayal often comes from where trust once lived. Clara's heartbreak is a reminder that the people we think we know best can sometimes hide the darkest truths. Michael's fate teaches us that every warning ignored, every boundary crossed, can lead to irreversible consequences. And Daniel's actions show how obsession, when left unchecked, can destroy not just one life, but ripple through many. We must ask ourselves, how many others walk among us, carrying wounds that no one sees? How many stories end not with joy, but with silence, because those around them miss the signs? This is not just a crime story, it is a call to vigilance, compassion, and courage. If you or someone you know is in a situation where secrecy and control have turned dangerous, do not wait until it is too late. Reach out, speak out. Lives depend on it. And if Michael's story has moved you, let it not end here. Share his truth so that it may protect others. Honor his memory by refusing to let silence be stronger than justice. Before you leave, remember to subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and share this video. Together, we can shed light on the stories that must never be forgotten.